Hi, hello, good afternoon. So Ani and I thought we might just have a little conversation. I think probably everyone here has at least a sense of the empty, lucid, radiant, primordial ground. But then it really does become a matter of how do we live from that and as that. Because that's the heart's wish, right? We look at the world with that tender heart that Trungpa was pointing to. Even if a mosquito lands there, it's touched, it's moved. It's an open-hearted expression. But there's, can be, if there's still just if the all is well, and all is perfectly well of emptiness hasn't really been fully established or isn't being completely inhabited, the world is very overwhelming for a heart that is still carrying identity. I mean, we all know that. It's, what did he say? That emptiness looks out and is moved to care, spontaneous compassion, spontaneous lovingness. And when we as a person are trying to generate that, that's a very different experience because it can just become very overwhelming very quickly with the way the world is right at the moment. Sharon did a course, I don't remember how many years ago it was, maybe she'll remember. It was when she was, I think she's always been pointing to the ground in the empty center, but she made us sign a paper, like, I'm committed to live from there. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was an online course. And we were exploring that with her because it really is about inhabiting. Both feet planted. Put your boat, put your kayak in the river you want to go down. Our deepest knowing of ourselves. Because even after deep and profound awakening to that, all the names, Padmasambhava says, people call it a lot of different names. The seduction of identity with what Sharon called the remnants or the samskaras, the pieces that have been held out, that want to come home, will come into the space that has been awakened, and into the emptiness is full, and the fullness of being is an agent of universal wisdom, not personal strategizing, planning, mapping out, all of that. But it takes a while to get used to, and it can be very, depending. Some people have this very subtly, but here I just was incredibly stubborn or hard-headed or something, I don't know, and kind of needed like a, like everything had to fall apart totally, house, partner, money, location, job, so that the reflection rearranges as the level of consciousness is changed. Right? The wind is the mind and the body is the sand. So the levels of consciousness begin to be reflected in what we would think of as the outer reality. And it can be a rock and roll show, as we said. I think many here have already journeyed through that, but nevertheless, even when a lot of the what we would have called personal psychological stuff, human stuff, has been seen, returned, welcomed, loved, and dissolved back to the ground, there's still the world, right? The evening news. And everyone here is a bodhisattva heart, so that's not push-awayable or ignorable. So we become more and more and more empty so that we may be more and more and more available as true nature, so that true nature and the responsive immediacy, the simple immediacy that is, has an avenue for creative, innovative, fresh, some people say evolved, but I would say original expression. I mean, that's the beauty of Sangha and teachers, because, any one of us can get off course at any level of realization. Any one of us can get off course because of the depth of what's happening right now. There's a real depth to this transformation that we're all part of. So, the confidence, is that what confidence? It does take some, Dr. Hawkins called it courage, but confidence and community and trust, which is not easy. But as the direct experience becomes more and more and more lived, and not just kind of sensed like, oh yeah, I know that, but it's actually the vehicle is becoming more and more empty and just moved of its own accord, according to the greater love, rather than the defended person. That trust becomes more of just a knowing, because you've seen it enough times where if, say, rage comes in, and prior to the label of rage, there's an energy to it, right? To anything. There's an energy to it prior to the labeling, like we've been talking about and discovering. And if one is able to, boom, move as, sit right down in presence. Like, come what may, without the, what were they calling it? Discursive thought. Self-referencing is what I call it. Referencing. Just whew. In this channel, of existence, as this channel is raging, then it's miraculous, as we know. Everyone here knows it's miraculous, the coming, abiding, and going. It goes. And all the masters and all the traditions and all the paths and anyone who's ever discovered this recognizes that, and as Trungpa said, that warrior heart, tender, raw, pure, naked heart is the healing of the world. It doesn't feel like activism and all the things we dreamed we were going to do to save the world in our noble way, and it is noble. It is. It's just circular and never ending, because it is force. It's in the world of force rather than power. So if I don't know if any of you are into physics and all that, but force counter force and all of that, it's not in the realm of just turning on the light, and when the light comes on, there goes the dark. Dark never really existed. It was an absence of light. The switch goes on. It's not like darkness scuttles off into the corners and stays there until it's not actually existent. It's just the light isn't on. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I remember reading, Alex mentioned Eckhart Tolle yesterday, and I remember reading that Power of Now book a long time ago when I was in nursing school. A friend of mine gave it to me, and I always remembered, because I was going from house to house to house to house to house, being an integral part of families letting go of a loved one, and a loved one letting go of breath. And I was 20-something years old, 20 and 30, and I didn't think much about pain bodies and all of that kind of stuff. I could see there was a lot of pain on a lot of levels. But I remember him talking about in that book that the antidote to the pain body, the collective the story of victimhood, was presence. I didn't really have a sense of it at the time, although hospice definitely teaches you presence, because there's nothing to do and nowhere to go but just be there. There's no curative method. There's no methodology. It's about being. But I wouldn't have known, I didn't have a sense of the true nature being, that we are that. But even, back then it was a sense, an intuitive sense to just get what I would have called real small and quiet and kind of under the radar in the presence of, in some of these homes, it was the presence of what we would call the deepest horrors of what people have done to each other, and a real level of unconsciousness. But there's an what I'm trying to get to is we have an intuitive sense of how to be with what we might call, the pain body, the deepest challenges, war, horror, all of it, within our own self and with what we call the world, which, breaks down, right? We all know that. There's no otherness. We have an intuitive sense of deep, primordial, silent, stillness, presence, the alwaysness. And it's a refuge. And it's not only a refuge, it's a it is an agent of transmutation. It's home. We don't have to know everything. We don't have to plan, strategize. We may be used in that way in service. The intellect might come online, but it's with a sense of buoyancy rather than overwhelm. That's how you know the difference of where you're at. Because the ego structure, the persona, gets overwhelmed real quickly, especially in tender-hearted situations. But the sustaining, animating principle is not of that realm. It's of a different order and magnitude of power. Not an ego structure, being someone who is powerful. Someone who is powerful. Someone who has power. No. Empty fullness is the power. The primordial mind, I can't remember all the words he was using, but they all made sense in that. Same. I used to have a Thai teacher, Bodhisattva from Thailand. Same. I'm a gardener, and so most of my metaphors in my mind are all about planting seeds. Maybe Paul gets it, but I'm always put your feet in the ground, plant in the ground, get in the ground, stand, cultivate the soil. I like the word inhabit. Something comes in either through the senses and tips off the fight or flight, or something comes in through verbal or visual, something like that, and tips off memory banks. And the nervous system does its thing, and then the juice goes in with the emotion and all of that. And here we are, that which sees, that which is. It's not moving, it's not changing, totally beyond, but also intimately amongst everything. And the attention and our devotion goes there. right in the middle of it. We're not transcendent. We are as is, without an agenda to manipulate, but just with deep presence, as deep presence. And, the thinking mind might scurry around a lot for like, danger, danger, red flag, red flag. I mean, you can feel it, can't you? When it's happening, it's like, it's doing everything in its noble, innocent best to tell you to get the hell out of there. In some way, like snarky comment or defense or compensation or justification or rationalization. Believe this, you're in a dangerous zone. You're naked. It's okay. It's totally understandable. And when we understand something, compassion is natural. It's totally understandable. That's been the job of the survival mechanism and the ego structure for millennia. Run from the tiger. So it's really understandable. It's not like an evil enemy. But it's not the fundamental truth. And it is so never-ending and circular, same as it ever was, same as it ever was, same as it ever was. And that's not what any of us are interested in. We're just not interested in that anymore. Thanks be to God.